Welcome to the Poop Academy, a podcast about all things poop, hosted by Dr. Grunt and Lady Splash.
This podcast is not intended to be medical advice. If you or any other person has a medical concern, consult with a healthcare professional immediately. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard in this podcast. If you have a medical emergency, call 911 immediately.
Welcome, nincompoops. This is Dr. Grunt, your co-host of the Poop Academy. Thanks for joining us for episode 1 of the podcast that stinks so good. Today we're answering the question, what is poop? So drop trowel and get comfortable on your toilet because we are starting. As always, next to me is Miss Lady Splash.
Hey there, nincompoops. I'm super excited to get rolling and talk about what exactly makes up our stinky yet fascinating butt butter.
Butter. Makes me want some toast. Earthy spread. I definitely can believe it's not butter. All right,
Ew.
Let me focus. Okay, so what do you think people's misconception of poop is?
Well, before I started nursing school and had science classes, I'd always assumed that it was whatever we ate that the body didn't use. I mean, that's what my health classes and my mama taught me. Garbage in, garbage out, Missy.
Garbage in, garbage out. Well, it makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do call it waste after all. So it's like waste products.
Sure.
But that's not completely wrong, nor is it completely right.
Exactly. I mean, before we get into specifics, let me step listeners through the digestive process because it's really specialized and yet very fascinating. It'll help to make more sense when we break down turd composition.
Turd composition 101. Perfect.
Yes.
Go for it.
All right, so say you go and you have a cheeseburger. What's your favorite kind of cheeseburger? Dr. Brown?
I just kind of like it with everything.
All right. So say you get the juiciest cheeseburger, tomato, onion, all of that. You take a bite into it. Your teeth mash it up. Your tongue mixes it with saliva, and it gets pushed down your esophagus.
Mm-hmm.
And then in your esophagus, it becomes a bolus. And when it drops down into your stomach, it becomes mixed with hydrochloric acid.
Now, is this the stuff that's like battery acid?
Yeah, it's super nasty stuff. You don't want it outside the stomach area at
Okay.
all. You've got to keep it in there. And the only reason the stomach actually is able to contain it is because the stomach actually has mucus lining in it that protects it. But I digress. So after it's in the stomach, it breaks down into a material called chyme. And it stays in the stomach for about 2 to 4 hours before moving on to the small intestine. So a lot of people think the small intestine is just a smaller version of the large intestine, but it has actually 2 different functions. So in the small intestine, all the nutrients and vitamins from the food that you ate actually gets pushed into the bloodstream. So it's kind of like a little wall that just kind of like sucks everything out. It's like the moving area from the digestive system to the blood area.
Okay.
And then from there, it's moved through to the large intestine. Now, the large intestine is what balances everything out. The large intestine will receive signals that there's some kind of imbalance like water, electrolytes, salt, and based on that information, it will receive more water, salt, fat, electrolytes, and will also move the mass through to the rectum, which is kind of like the stored unit of the feces, and then it'll be stored there until it's time to have one of those handy-dandy BMs, you know what I mean?
So what's the difference between the rectum and the anus?
Well, the rectum is the area before the anus. It's kind of like a chute. You ever seen the movies where the astronauts are waiting in the launch pad before they get jettisoned down into space?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so that's kind of what the rectum is. You're just sitting there waiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
A holding tank. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the anus is the hole.
Yeah.
All right. The hole. All right. So poop, feces, stool, crap, whatever we want to call it, it's the normal end result of a healthy digestive system.
That's right.
In later episodes, we're going to get into what happens when that system isn't running so smoothly or when it stops altogether.
I hate that when a backup happens. And I know I talk to you about that all the time, Dr. Grunt. So we know that poop has undigested food from the small intestine in it. And I hinted that water's also involved too.
Yeah, so poop, believe it or not, is actually 75% water.
75% water? I mean, when I think about 75%, I totally think like that's probably diarrhea quality, right? But sometimes it doesn't feel very much like water. I mean, it's brown bumps, it's brown lumps and bumps, like all formed into like a solid mass. How can that be water? It feels pretty solid coming out.
Yeah, so the more that your poop or that chyme and all that stuff that you mentioned sits in the digestive tract where it's getting balanced between water and nutrients and stuff, the body is just going to start sucking more water out and reabsorbing it because we need water in our body. And so that's one place it can get it if we're not drinking enough. So if it sits in there too long, the body is actually going to make it harder and you're going to get constipation.
Okay. So drink more water to get things moving.
Yeah.
I'm working on that on my list of life goals right now. Less cheese, more water.
Less cheese whiz, more water.
Hey,
yeah.
It counts as cheese still.
Oh, I don't know about that. All right. So, yeah, you're right. Definitely more water, right? So, because the less your body has to suck back out of that poop in your colon, the better. Plus, it helps keep things moving right along and flowing.
Okay, gotcha. So, we talked about the 75%. What's the other 25%?
I know people were probably pretty surprised about 75% being water, but a lot of people probably don't want to know what this last 25% is about. So we know we have undigested food, right? We've heard about fiber, and we'll talk about that in a second. We also have fats and salts and cellular debris from our body that is now waste that needs to be gotten rid of.
Okay.
But 10 to 15% of the rest of that 25% is actually bacteria and viruses.
Oh, so if you ever thought about your poop just being waste, think again. It's actually really teeming with billions of microbes. So almost 50% of this bacteria were once alive and doing work.
Yeah.
After doing some additional research on this, I learned that there's estimates of 100 million to 1 billion viruses per gram in wet feces inside of us.
Oh, you know what? I just had this light bulb that went off. I wonder if these living bacteria that we have in our feces is where we get the saying, feel like I'm giving birth. Millions of micro poop babies.
Oh my God, put Octomom shame with your brown brood. What about fungi? Can
I should
poop
start
that
a
out?
registry.
Oh, you should.
Baby registry. Yeah, fungi is the same. You're right. We can also pass yeast in our poop, and it's found in about 70% of adult poop. It's pretty common.
Okay, so things are starting to come together now. So when you take antibiotics, upset stomach and diarrhea are unexpected side effects because the medicine is also wiping out the good bacteria in your gut, right?
You are so smart.
Gold star for me.
Gold.
Let's pause on this note to remind everyone to wash their hands after they take a dump. Otherwise, you are literally spreading poop germs everywhere. Ugh. Dr. Grunt, you mentioned fiber. Let's go back to that. That's undigested food, right?
Yeah. Fiber is definitely something that we hear about all the time. I mean, it's on TV. You hear about it from your doctor. So let's look at a couple of examples. So vegetarians. We all know that vegetarians take in way more fiber than everybody else. And so there's a reason for that. Fiber has a high water carrying capacity. So the more fiber you take in, the more water that's going to be traveling with it. So naturally, vegetarians are going to have more fiber and water in their stools, while people who ingest less fiber and way more protein, animal fats of that nature, they're going to have lower water content.
Again, another plug for drinking water. I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, we are just big bags of water walking around. So it's super important, not just for GI health like we're discussing, but for health in general.
All right, so you talked about the 75% plus the 25%. That's 100% water and organic material coming out of us with each grunt. What else within that composition should nincompoopers know about?
Probably fats. Fats are also in our poop. And it, of course, just depends on mostly what you're eating. So, like if I'm eating a cheeseburger and you're eating a broccoli salad, then, naturally my poop is just going to contain more fats because our body only needs so much of it. But what everybody needs to realize is that no matter your intake of fat, you're still going to have some fat in your poop.
Okay, that makes sense. Fattier poop after fattier meals. So what we've talked about so far is normal, healthy poop, right?
Yeah, great point to make. Not everyone's poo is going to be the same. Let's remember that. And there are some diseases, such as inflammatory bowel disease, that can lead to changes in the type of bacteria that we talked about in your gut. So those can change if they do like a stool study or something for you. Plus, let's always remember that the presence of blood in the stool could signal something bad, like bowel cancer. But this isn't always the case, and it's good to check out.
Fortunately, there are good screening tests that can pick up the presence of trace blood in the stools and lead to further investigations, such as a colonoscopy.
All right, my lady. That was another big dump of information. How do you feel now?
Surprisingly lighter, like I've had a colon cleanse.
All right, what's episode numero dos about?
It's a good one. It's called Why Does My Poop Smell? I'll bring the air freshener and matches.
Yeah, lots of them, I hope. All right, everyone, give it a good wipe. Hop off that turlet, and don't forget to wash your hands. We are out of here.
Smell you later, and wash your hands, people. You've been listening to the Poop Academy with Dr. Grunt and Lady Splash. Subscribe to our podcast to become a nincompoop and share the joy of learning about poop with your friends. Got ideas and comments? Send us a message at thepoopacademy@gmail.com, and your idea or commentary could be featured on a future episode.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for The Poop Academy. And don't forget to leave a rating and review to get the podcast in front of more eyes. It's very appreciated. Thanks to Kevin MacLeod and Mike Kooning for music and sound effects available at Creative Commons.